All right, let's go.
You know that in Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic, in Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, referenda were held. All the votes were calculated and the outcomes are known. People have made their choice. And this choice is beyond any doubt. Today we're going to sign the treaties on admitting the Donetsk People's Republic, Lugansk People's Republic, Zaporozhye region and Kherson region. I am sure that the Federal Assembly will support constitutional laws on admitting to Russia 4 new regions, 4 new constituent entities, because it is the will of millions of people.
Let's go, Z!
And of course, it is their right, it is their inherent right, which is enshrined in the Article 1 of the UN Charter, which directly says about the principle of equality and self-determination of peoples. Once again, I would like to reiterate, it's an inherent right. It is based on the historical unity in the name of which generations of our ancestors were winning their battles. Those who, from the roots of ancient Rus, for centuries was creating and protecting Russia. Here in the new Russia, months of Suvorov and Ushakov were fighting. They were founding new cities by Catherine the Great and Potemkin. Our fathers, grandfathers stood their ground during the Great Patriotic War here, and we will forever remember the heroes of the Russian Spring, those who did not agree with the new Nazi coup d'etat in Ukraine in 2014, all those who died for the right to speak their native tongue, to preserve their culture, traditions, values, and faith, for the right to live. These are the warriors of Donbass, martyrs of Odessa and Kharkiv, victims of the terrorist attacks perpetrated by the Kiev regime, volunteers and militiamen, civilians, children, women, elder people, Russians, Ukrainians, people of various ethnicities. The true people's leader of Donetsk, Alexander Zakharchenko, battle commanders Rzhoga, Kachura, Mozgovoy, Sergei Gorenko, the attorney of the People's Republic, all our soldiers and officers who died as heroes during the special military operation. They are true heroes.
Yes, they are heroes.
Heroes of great Russia. Please, let's honor them with a minute of silence. Thank you. Millions of people in Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic, in Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, they made their choice, and our common destiny and millennia history is behind us. That was passed on from generation to generation. Despite all the difficulties, they kept the love for Russia through years. And these feelings cannot be destroyed in us by anyone. That's why older generations and the youth, those who were burned up for the tragedy of the collapse of the Soviet Union, voted for our unity, for our common shared future. In 1991, in Belovezhskaya Pucha, without asking about the will of regular citizens, representatives of those party elites made the decision to bring their homeland to collapse. And the people, they were torn apart from their motherland. It dismembered our unity, national unity. It turned into a disaster. Like after the revolution, they were making dividing borders somewhere behind the scenes, and the latest leaders of the Soviet Union, despite the direct expression of will at the referendum of 1991, they destroyed our great country. They just presented it to the people as a fact. Maybe they didn't completely understand what they were doing and what would be the consequences of this. But this doesn't matter anymore. The Soviet Union is no more. The past cannot be fixed. And Russia today doesn't need this. We are not striving for this, but there is nothing stronger than the willingness of millions of people who culturally, in their faith, in their language, in their traditions, consider themselves to be part of Russia, whose ancestors for centuries lived in one state. There is nothing stronger than their willingness to go back to their true historic homeland. For long 8 years, peoples in Donbass were shelled, were blockaded, were put under genocide. And in Kherson and Zaporozhye, they were trying to cultivate hatred in them towards Russia. And now Kiev regime was threatening them with death to school teachers, to women who were working in the election committees. They were intimidating with reprisals millions of people who came to express their will. But broken people of Donbass, Zaporozhye and Kherson, they made their choice. I want Kiev regime and their sponsors from the West to hear me, to heed me. I want everyone to remember that people who live in Donetsk and Lugansk and Kherson and Zaporozhye, now they become our citizens forever.
Let's go. Let's go. What? All right, better not buffer. Dude. Come on, man. What's going on?
We appeal to the Kiev regime to ceasefire immediately all the hostilities, the war that they started back in 2014, and to
Sky
go back
News,
at the
YouTube.
negotiations table, because we are ready to do that, and we have said that on many occasions. But the choice of the people of Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporozhye and Kherson, we are not going to discuss that. The
All right, let's see if we can.
choice was made, and Russia will not betray this choice.
Okay, that's just fucked up.
Security. We will do everything for people in these regions to feel the support of all republics
Great
and
audio.
all parts of this large motherland.
Nice audio. Really? How about this? That's right. Sheesh.
Уважаемые друзья, коллеги, сегодня хочу обратиться к солдатам и офицерам, которые участвуют в специальной военной операции,
Because I don't speak
к воинам Донбасса и Новороссии, к тем, уважаемые друзья, коллеги, сегодня хочу обратиться к солдатам и офицерам, которые участвуют в специальной
They should see this expression of will with respect, and that's the only way we can reach a peaceful solution. We will protect our lands with every means we have at our disposal, and we will do everything to provide safety for our people. This is the great liberating mission of our people.
Dude.
We will restore destroyed.
Okay, we're absolutely fucked here. There are no good options. Russia today is really letting us down.
смириться с его диктатом.
Theaters.
Тогда, в 1991 году, Запад рассчитывал, что
The West believed that USSR will not come back, or Russia will not come back from that blow. And we had this awful 1990s, and however, Russia withstood that. And
Here, someone says this one works. That one, the audio is it's like only coming in through my left deal. Here, let's try this.
Under someone else's dictate. The West can cross all the lines to preserve that neocolonial system that allows them to remain a parasite, basically to plunder the world using the dictate of their technologies and dollar, to collect fees from mankind, to collect this fee of a hegemon. And this is the key motive that they have. That's why they want total sovereignty. That's why they are becoming aggressive towards truly independent states, towards traditional values and independent cultures, and attempts to undermine international and integrational processes that they do not control, new global currencies and centers of technological development. It is critical for them to see all the countries abandon their sovereignty for the benefit of the United States. Ruling elites of some of the states, they do this voluntarily, and they agree to become vassals voluntarily. Others are intimidated or bribed, and if they don't succeed, they destroy entire states, and they leave humanitarian disaster, ruins in their wake. Millions of people fall casualty to that. They create enclaves, protectorates, colonies, half-colonies, but they do not care. The only thing they want is to benefit from that.
Again, it is this will to dominate is the origin of the war, the hybrid war that the West is waging against Russia. They do not wish us to be free. They want us to be a colony. They don't want to have a partnership with us. They want to plunder us. They want us to be slaves, not free citizens. Free thought is not what they want us to have. Free philosophy is not what they want us to have. That's why they kill our philosophers. And our well-being is a threat to them. Our development is a threat to them. They don't want Russia to thrive. We want Russia to thrive. We need Russia. Again, attempts at world domination have been thwarted many times by the great Russian people, and now again we will protect our people and our values. Our enemies believe that they will not have to suffer the consequences of their actions, that there will be no ramifications, but that is not true. All the agreements that had been reached before on global security or agreements between governments are no longer respected or valued. Many of our former leaders actually listened to our Western enemies and decided to give up their weapons, their power, their everything. They listened to the lies and they believed them. And that led to what is now called a rules-based world order. What rules are we talking about? Who agreed on those rules that the West proclaim? These are all lies. These are all double standards and hypocrisy. They take us as fools, take us for fools, and Russia is a civilization of thousands of years, and we will not live according to someone else's rules. It is this so-called collective West that trampled on the principles of indivisibility of borders, and now it decides unilaterally who has the right for self-determination and who doesn't have that right. Why? What is the rationale for their decisions? Who gave them the right to decide all of that? Nobody knows that. This is why they were so enraged by the free choice of the people in Crimea, in Donetsk, and Lugansk, in Zaporozhye, in Kherson. They have no right to even talk about freedom of speech or democracy democracy or self-determination of the peoples there. The Western elites deny not just international law and free rights, and they keep talking about apartheid. They divide the world into the host countries and the colonies, the vassals, the barbarians. They call these authoritarian regimes, they call them failed states and pariahs. But there's nothing new in that. The Western elites have been like that for hundreds of years. They have always been colonizers. They have been discriminating and dividing peoples into groups and dominating them. We will never accept this kind of nationalism and racism in Russia. We now see Russophobia and anti-Russian sentiment across the world spread by the West. And the West is convinced that its civilization, its neoliberal culture, is a template for the entire world to follow, and there are no other options, no other scenarios. They do not even wish to accept and repent for their own crimes of the past, their own historical crimes. They blame others for their own crimes. Take, for example, the period of colonial domination. In fact, it was back in the Middle Ages that the West started its colonial regimes. Then the genocide of the peoples of America, the plundering of India, of Africa, the wars against China, the Opium Wars. What the West did was they made entire nations dependent on drugs and eliminating and genociding entire ethnic groups. They hunt people like animals. This goes against what we believe and treasure as human life, and we feel proud that it is our country in the 20th century that led the anti-colonialist movement, that allowed many countries to become free, to fight hunger and inequality, to overcome many of those challenges. And the Russophobia and the anti-Russian sentiment that we feel today is in many ways caused by the fact that we did not let our nation, our people, to become a colony. We defended others and we defended ourselves by creating a strong centralized state that developed itself, strengthened itself based on great moral values of great world religions and based on Russian culture and the Russian language. It is well known that there have been many plans at instigating interventions and launching interventions against Russia after 1917, during the First World War and during the Great Revolution. But by the end of the 20th century, the West was finally able to attack us. They called us friends, they called us partners, but they were actually treating us as a colony, as slaves. They plundered us and took our wealth, our money and our power. But now the people in Donetsk and Lugansk and Kherson and Zaporozhye finally decided to restore this great unity of our nation. Thank you. The Western nations for ages have been saying that they bring democracy and freedom to the world, but it's entirely the opposite. Instead of democracy, they enslave. Instead of freedom, they destroy. The Western world order is not free. It is hypocritical and full of lies. The US is the only nation in the world that used nuclear weapons, twice destroying the towns of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Let me remind you that together with the UK, the US during World War II annihilated Dresden, Hamburg, and Cologne, and there was no rationale behind that. There was no need to destroy with air bombardment these great cities. They wanted to do that to intimidate the Soviet Union. That was their only goal. The West left a horrible history in Vietnam, where they used napalm and other horrible tactics. Remember the Republic of Korea and their actions there. They keep calling South Korea their own allies. What kind of allies are these? We know that many of the leaders of those countries that are perceived as allies of the West are being followed, and there are various devices used to listen to them and spy on them. And the leaders of these countries tolerate all that. And all of that is branded as transatlantic solidarity. And all of these horrible crimes that are being committed in the war zones are also excused. And all of that led to a great problem that has to do with migrant flows. People are fleeing their countries, going to Europe and elsewhere. There is a problem of food security. There's food, there's bread being and grain being exported from Ukraine and Russia. Where is that grain going? It is not going to the poorest countries.